Beneath the surface of an apparently quiet offseason, the Boston Celtics are bracing for a storm that could reshape their very identity. According to well-placed league insiders, veteran center Al Horford, a 39-year-old Ironman whose leadership has been woven into Boston's DNA, is weighing a stunning pivot, retirement, or a high-stakes defection to a major Western Conference rival that has quietly inquired about his availability. For a franchise that has leaned on Horford's stabilizing presence in countless playoff battles, the idea of him suiting up in enemy colors would be nothing short of a seismic betrayal. But that's not the only shockwave on the horizon. Move that would defy any notion of playing it safe. The Celtics are seriously pursuing Damian Lillard, recently waived, and now a 9-time All-Star with a question mark hanging over his availability for most of next season. Boston's front office seems willing to gamble on Lillard's eventual return rather than fear his lost months, a risk that suggests they view his superstar skill set as a once-in-a-decade opportunity to break the finals deadlock once and for all. And if that wasn't enough to rattle the parquet, one prominent league executive has hinted at the unthinkable. Boston might entertain offers for Jaylen Brown. Trading away an Allenby wing under a mega deal would be a move so staggering that it could rip the fanbase in two. Yet, the front office reportedly believes a trade package for Brown could rewrite the championship timeline faster than incremental tweaks ever could. In other words, while Celtics fans might assume their team is just quietly reloading for another title push, the truth is far more volatile. The future of Horford, the Lillard gamble, and even Brown's untouchable status are all on the table, leaving Boston on the brink of an off-season earthquake no one saw coming. Houston's ruthless breakup with Jock Landele could become Boston's emergency lifeline. Whether fans like it or not, the Boston Celtics have seen their once-stacked frontcourt disintegrate almost overnight. Kristaps Porzingis is gone, traded, away to Atlanta. Luke Kornet defected to San Antonio. Even Al Horford, the team's aging backbone, is now flirting with Golden State and the Lakers. That leaves Boston with nothing but developmental projects and half measures to protect the rim. A glaring risk for a franchise that has championship banners in its crosshairs. Enter Jock Landele, suddenly on the market after Houston dumped him to dodge an $8 million salary guarantee. It's easy to overlook Landale's pedestrian stat lines, minus 4.8 points, 3.3 rebounds, barely 12 minutes a night. But dig deeper, and you'll see a 6'11" bruiser with an Olympic medal and a proven capacity to adapt to high-level roles on short notice. That versatility could be gold in Boston, where depth has become a dangerous liability. The Celtics do not have the luxury of rolling the dice on unproven big men all season. No matter how intriguing they look on paper, Neemias Queta, Xavier Tillman, Luka Garza, they are useful puzzle pieces, but none has demonstrated the backbone to anchor a playoff rotation. Jock Landele, despite a rocky year in Houston, knows how to bang with NBA heavyweights and could plug the gaping holes in Boston's rebounding and rim protection schemes faster than any minimum salary gamble. If Brad Stevens is serious about not letting this championship window slam shut, he cannot afford to leave the frontcourt to chance. Signing Landele may not be glamorous, but it could be the critical insurance policy that separates another finals collapse from Banner 19. Shockwaves are still rumbling through Boston, and the next domino to fall might sting even more than the last. After unloading Jrue Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis in a pair of ruthless, plus-slashing trades, the Celtics front office signaled to the basketball world that no veteran is truly safe. Driven by the suffocating pressures of a historic luxury tax bill following the 2024-25 campaign, Boston tore apart a roster many thought would stay intact, gambling on financial survival instead of short-term security. But don't think they're finished. The Celtics still find themselves uncomfortably lodged above the second apron, and league insiders are convinced the franchise is plotting at least one more major cost-cutting move before training camp opens this fall. And the target this time is a player no one expected to see on the chopping block. Sam Hauser, one of the team's most reliable perimeter threats, looks like a dead man walking in Boston green. According to Jay King of The Athletic, Boston sits roughly $332,000 above the threshold that separates the league's first and second apron under the new CBA. That figure might sound small, but to the ownership group and Brad Stevens, it's a red line drawn in permanent ink. And with a new ownership group taking the reins, nobody wants to start their tenure drowning in a monstrous tax bill for a team that might not even contend this year. Why? Because Jayson Tatum is staring down a massive absence that could wipe out most, if not all, of his regular season. And without their franchise centerpiece in uniform, why would Boston want to sink deeper into an expensive financial pit? From a purely basketball standpoint, dumping Hauser is borderline criminal. Over the last 3 years, he's become a trusted, knockdown floor spacer, burying 42% of his threes, while showing up in 71 or more regular season games each year. He stepped into starting roles without blinking. He hit pressure shots. He gave Boston exactly what modern basketball demands on the wing. But basketball reasons aren't steering the ship in Boston right now. The almighty dollar is Hauser. Along with newly acquired Georgia's Niang has become the most logical piece to sacrifice, even if fans will hate every second of it. Denver, reportedly, is sniffing around with a trade exception big enough to swallow Hauser's salary, which would let Boston finally duck under that second apron. Hauser's exit would leave a gaping hole in Boston's rotation, no question. But ownership seems to have made peace with the ugly math. There is no sense spending record-breaking sums on a roster about to lose its best player for months. The Celtics may not like the taste of it, but they're preparing to swallow the bitter pill anyway. In Boston, heartbreak is coming again. And this time, it could arrive with Sam Hauser walking out the door. Even after ripping off the Band-Aid with those bold trades of Jrue Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis, the Boston Celtics' work is far from done. Boston has been playing a dangerous game of financial surgery to swerve under the second apron. And, in the short term, they pulled it off, shedding the contracts of Holiday and Porzingis for Anthony Simons and Georges. Niang was a masterstroke if their goal was to dodge the repeat taxes' ruthless penalties, but the real question is, at what cost? They've carved themselves a one-year window, a sabbatical, if you will, to tear down and rebuild around Jayson Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Derek White. The downside? That window will slam shut fast. If Tatum's troubling Achilles rehab lingers, as feared in league circles, the Celtics are staring down the barrel of a lost season. Rather than clinging to the fantasy of immediate contention, they might be better off stockpiling assets now to reload for a proper run in 2026 to 27. And that's where the next moves must hit harder. And for me, Simons cannot simply stay. Let's be real. Simons is more than a highlight reel scorer. He is a one-man offense capable of detonating in the pick and roll, a perimeter flamethrower with 215 made threes last season. His offensive gravity alone could help the Celtics mask Tatum's absence and patch together a top 10 offense. But the problem is, Simons will soon hit unrestricted free agency, and Boston cannot afford to throw him a long-term bag just to protect his trade value. Worse, keeping Simons could actively suffocate the breakout of Peyton Pritchard, a cheaper guard who has flashed legitimate upside as a high-volume creator. Blocking Pritchard's development now might kneecap Boston's ability to sustain depth later. When the salary cap pressures intensify even more, there is a case to move Simons immediately and aggressively. His skill set makes him a dream target for guard-starved contenders. Milwaukee, still desperate to lighten the burden on Damian Lillard, could jump at the chance. Indiana might call if Tyrese Halliburton's injuries linger. In a trade landscape where even average initiators fetch draft capital, Simons is a premium chip that the Celtics cannot afford to waste. Then there's the frontcourt horror show. Big man rotation is teetering on the edge of calamity. Al Horford is basically on his way to Golden State, if the whispers are accurate, leaving Neemias Queta, a guy who has never even averaged 15 minutes a night, as the only true center. With starting experience, Luka Garza and Xavier Tillman Sr. That's a G League caliber fallback plan if we're being honest. Swapping Porzingis for Niang created a screaming void in the paint. Niang is a passable small ball 5 in the right matchup, but for a marathon NBA season, he's a band-aid on a bullet wound. And the free agent market, forget it. Chris Boucher, Trey Lyles, Isaiah Jackson, none of them move the needle enough to be more than spot minutes, which is precisely why Boston must weaponize Simons. His contract could be the perfect bait to land a starting caliber big while also trimming salary. Nikola Vucevic is on the trade block, and despite his flaws, he is a functional double-double machine who costs $6 million less than Simons. That is a clean win in cap math. Or maybe Zach Collins, a rugged defender with a short-term deal, could come in a multi-team swap if Boston is willing to sweeten the pot with a pick. Even Dallas, drowning in surplus big men after their own recent moves, might flip a serviceable center plus D'Angelo Russell for Simons' shooting. Make no mistake, Boston cannot stumble into October with Queta, Garza, and Tillman as their only bigs. That would be a meltdown in the making. And with Tatum's Achilles recovery, an open question. Celtics would be punting away an entire year of Brown's prime, an unforgivable sin in a league where championship windows close in the blink of an eye. If Boston wants to keep their dynasty dreams alive, they need to keep gutting the roster with cold-blooded precision. Simons is not a long-term answer. He's a short-term luxury they cannot indulge. They should cash him in, pivot for a center, and treat this offseason like an all-out war on roster rot. Anything less, and the Celtics will be sleepwalking straight into a disaster.